because any business that stays stagnant is going to be one that dies, right? Like you have to adjust with things. People's interests change. What is going on? This is a solo podcast with me, Riley. I just wanted to pop in here. I thought this was some valuable stuff that I could share with the good of the group of the people that actually listen to this podcast. And so welcome to the Tactical Empire podcast. This is me, Riley. I am the CMO and growth partner here at the Tactical Empire. And I wanted to share some really good questions that we had within our inner circle group that I think a lot of people can benefit from. And so one of the questions we got is just when growth stalls, let me get back to the question. So one of the questions was, after hitting a growth ceiling, which we have over the last year, what do you do to break past that with a quality lead engine through marketing levers and knowing which ones to pull? And then the secondary question that he had was identifying the variables through those marketing levers that actually drives the MRR, which for those that listening is just monthly recurring revenue, and implementing the tools to track beyond just LTV and CAC. And honestly, within that secondary question, he kind of does answer his first question. And I'm going to explain. And so normally when people hit a growth ceiling, first let's break down what growth is. Growth, like growing your business, there's like we discussed in the last podcast when I was with Jeff and Sean, the only two ways that we grow a business is through getting new customers, getting new people to come into our business, or getting new business altogether. It doesn't necessarily need to be new customers. And these could be previous customers that have been with us before that we just won back their business with like win back campaigns with, for a lot of you guys that have previous customers, maybe you dropped the ball, maybe you made some shifts in your business that, maybe upset people and you made some learning lessons. Because let's be honest, like being a business owner is just testing things and seeing what works. Like, how can we constantly raise the bar? Because any business that stays stagnant is going to be one that dies, right? Like, you have to adjust with things. People's interests change. I remember when I ran my gym, like we changed things all the time. But as much as people like would always make comments about me making changes consistently or constantly, they love the fact that we were consistently looking for new ways to innovate and grow. And so um, people are always changing. People need new interests. They can only stay with things for so long. Think about your own interests and think about how things that you usually stay with. And so finding new ways to introduce them back to your business or reintroduce them to your business by like winning them back. And so we're going into Black Friday. And if you guys aren't running some sort of like Black Friday campaign with like a win back strategy of like, hey, I'm sorry I lost your business in the past. Like, I know we made some changes, but we would love to be able to bring that back to you. Like re-engage them, reactivate them to your business, reintroduce them to what's been going on with you. And don't be scared to. I see so many business owners and I work with so many business owners that have, they're scared to reach back out because that customer left them. Now, obviously, if they're not part of your ICA, which is your ideal customer avatar, then we part ways and hope the best for them. But if they are and they do fit that criteria, then you should be doing everything you can to win back those people and making them offers. Like no one's immune to an offer, right? And so just like I made a joke at our last meetup that arguably, when we introduced ourselves to our wives or our future wives at that time, like we were the offer. We were the ones standing in front of them, like this is me, take me as I am. And so we were the offer. And so going into that, like how do we grow a business? We grow it by getting more customers and then making our customers worth more, which we call the value ladder, right? Introducing them to the next step in the journey, which our customers, if we're doing a good job, should be evolving. They should be getting better and they should be, whatever it is that we provide, they should be getting that benefit. But then what happens when we get a benefit? Usually with like anything that we do, one problem will lead to the next, right? So like if I find a solution to an existing problem, we are problem aware all the time. We'll find the next problem. And if it falls in line with what your business model is and like what it is that you provide, you can provide that next solution and just be compensated for such. So like the biggest businesses just solve bigger problems. And so the businesses that make the most money are the ones that solve the biggest problems. And if you want to get paid big money, then solve big problems or solve more problems, right? And so now that we know that the way that the business grows by getting new customers and then proceeding to resell our current customers on the next step in their journey, um, pitching new offers and moving them up our value ladder, we understand that like, okay, when I hit a growth ceiling, it has to do with something around there, right? And so when growth stalls, it's usually because inconsistencies on the front end and a lack of tracking metrics, right? We have we have front end metrics and we have trailing metrics. Trailing metrics are like for fulfillment, and then front end metrics are like the growth metrics, the things that we should be paying attention to. And they're a lot of them are pretty common amongst all businesses, but some of them have little nuances that change based off of the channel of which we're acquiring new customers. And so I had put in there, when growth stalls, it's usually one of two things. The lead engine isn't consistent enough to create predictable revenue. Meta ads and B2B outreach, which is what this was their marketing medium. This is where they were trying to getting new business, right? Was through paid ads through Meta and B2B outreach, which is just business to business outreach. Okay. They can work, but only when the entire system around them is tight, meaning it's consistent, but it's the ICA, the offer, the nurture, the follow-up, and the way that you're tracking the numbers, right? And what I meant by that is no matter what we're marketing, because this person didn't share their metrics until later in the conversation. And so when I gave this answer, they didn't give the metrics, so it's hard to find a bottleneck. So I had to be very broad on the answer that I gave. And so looking at our messaging, is it attracting our current customers? Like if we as a tactical empire only work with men and we put out, you know, copy and advertising that attracts women, we're not going to get any new business, right? And so when our messaging isn't tight, we're not going to be attracting our avatar. And when our messaging also isn't tight and we are growing the business, we can grow in the wrong direction. And this is where I found myself in 2019, where I absolutely hated my business and what I was growing. Even though my business was thriving, I hated what I built because I was building it with the wrong people. And you can grow in the wrong direction. And so the next thing is the offer is if our messaging is tight and it's built around our ICA, our ideal client avatar, then the next thing is like, are we making something that's interesting to them? Right. If I'm an automobile company, or sorry, let's say like a a tire shop, right? And I'm advertising flat tires to people that don't have flat tires, right? Like I'm advertising to fix your flat tire to people that don't have flat tires. It's going to fall on deaf ears, right? It's not something that, you know, is an offer for them. But if I continue to keep offering that to that ideal customer that drives a car. So like we're being very broad here, but if my ideal customer is just somebody that drives a car, and I'm not very refined here on like what type of car, I'm not a specialty, shop. I'm not a niche shop. It's just car, somebody that drives a car. So I have a very broad audience, but then I'm advertising to fix your flat tire, but you don't have a flat tire. The moment you do have a flat tire, you're going to think of me in my advertising. As long as it's there, I'll get you to raise your hand and you'll take my offer. But if I'm only putting out offers to people that don't have flat tires, and then I turn off that advertising, I'm not consistent with it. When that person does get a flat tire, they might be looking on Google or whatever because my advertising is no longer, front of mind. And so that person's not going to raise their hand. And so that's another opportunity. I mean, there's so many different ways you can work around that, but like the offer is very important. Is it something that somebody needs? And all an offer is just an opportunity to provide the solution to their problem. That's really what it is. And if you know your ICA at such an intimate level, you'll know the problems, the pains that they go through, and the things that they want to avoid. And especially he was talking B2B. So I'm assuming he's working with businesses. Businesses generally, their pain is usually associated around money, right? Like a business thrives on cash flow. And so like usually that's where we'll find the pain associated. And so like it's when our offers are out there, it's usually towards making the businesses more money, right? When it comes to consumers or people, it's usually around getting them out of pain. So like when I owned a gym, we were more built around weight loss. And so we solved the weight loss niche. And so we were just getting people out of the pain of how they felt about themselves and being overweight. And so good little nugget there is B2B is usually around cash. Offers work really well around just making them money. And then when it comes to consumers, it's usually just getting them out of pain, avoiding pain. And so from the offer, then we move into the nurture. Like obviously I'm taking this very broad because this person didn't give me their metrics at first, which is if you're asking for help, you should just give your metrics essentially like, but to each their own, just to give you guys a process around it. So we moved from the ICA to the offer. Now we're into the nurture. I see so many businesses that are great about capturing their ICA, and then they're putting out good offers, and then people opt in and they think that, well, these people should just want to pay me right off the bat. The money's in the follow up, right? Like, yeah, you'll get some conversions on the front end and you'll get that dopamine rush and you'll start to be like, hey, I'm getting some sales like right off of this advertising. But where the money's really made is the follow up of people on your list. And so like I'm a huge advocate of treating your list like gold, right? These people opted in. They once raised their hands. There's a pyramid called the Chet Holmes pyramid, which is just the buyer cycle. And so essentially it's just starting at the base of the pyramid is just people that, they're not yet problem aware and they're not looking for a solution. And essentially just at the top of the pyramid, these are people in the most pain. Think Google. Like think when you have an issue and you're looking for a solution right off the bat, you're essentially going into Google. And as we're going into AI, I mean, we're just gonna be, we're going to be using these phones later on, here pretty soon, but we're getting everything like completely fed to us. But the moment we have a problem and we looking for that solution, we're really problem aware and we're actively looking for solutions. We usually go to Google. And so like that's a little hint outside of this podcast, but like that's a little hint to be getting your warmest traffic is probably through Google Ads. If you provide a solution to a problem that's pretty urgent, right? Like flat tires or something like that, then you can use keyword ads through Google and show up higher in the search feed so that your business is claiming that you're claiming that business. But when it comes to nurture, like so many businesses think because this person opted in but they didn't follow through and sign up that they're a lost customer or they're a poor lead. I hear that all the time. These quality leads suck. No, this person literally was scrolling through, had pain, saw your solution advertised to them, and they raised their hand. So it's like maybe they got cold feet. I was in the weight loss niche. Like so many people would opt in when we would run a paid ad for, our programs, but not everybody came through those doors. It was about following up with those people and saying, "Hey, it's okay. Like, I know you're nervous." Like meeting them where they're at, and talking to your audience from where they're at is another topic that we can discuss. But it's really just nurturing those people and following up with them. Like, and that led into the follow up, right? So like nurturing them to their appointments, nurturing them into booking with you, rebooking with you, nurturing them throughout the process. Like maybe you're providing a lead magnet for free and then you want to nurture them into the next step, after they consume your lead magnet and like how to use it or whatever it may be, nurturing them through that process. And then what's the next logical step from that? Like that's all part of nurture. You're nurturing them, right? And that leads right into follow up. Like like I said, the money's in the follow up. And then the last thing I told him was tracking his numbers. Like a lot of people will use just like, the basics of like what Meta provides if they're advertising on Meta with like cost per lead, um, or CPMs or um, a lot of the stuff that like if you're not a marketer is probably going to be right over your head. But it's the little metrics in between that. So like to get really broad with it, or sorry, to get really simple with this, just look at like what are our leads costing us, and then what's the next logical step from somebody that opts in from our advertising? Did they book? Is the booking the next sequence in our step? Okay, so like what happens in between that? Does the person click an ad and they move on to the landing page? Okay, what are our landing page conversions? Okay, what has to happen on the landing page? A lot of people just they don't map out their actual steps or the journey that somebody goes through to get to the actual conversion event. And when I say the conversion event, it's just because every business is different. Like when I was a in-person service business with my gym, the conversion event was getting people into the booked appointment, showing up for that appointment, and then sitting down with me for the sales consultation. But like the conversion event was an in-person sales. If you're a product business, it might be, the cart checkout or the landing page checkout, or like whatever it may be. Like whatever that conversion event is for you, like the job of the ad is to get the click. Okay. Well, the click does it go to a lead form ad on Facebook or does it go to a landing page? Like, what is that next step in the journey? And then, okay, cool. What's the next step from that? And then what's the next step from that? And then what's the next step from that? But if you think in everything as a marketer, you think everything in conversions, and you simply just do a Google search for insert niche common conversions for landing pages or insert niche, when I say niche, whatever business you're in, average conversion rates for a booked appointments or average conversion rate for sales. You'll get average metrics if you don't already know them. And then just compare each step in your pipeline to those average metrics that it tells you. And now we have AI at our disposal. So like you could literally, if you're, I mean, I think the stat came out like 80 million people are using, or 800 million people are using ChatGPT now or something like that on a daily basis. Like it's growing like consistently and people are putting a lot of personal stuff in there, but I put nothing but business in there. So like when I use my ChatGPT or my agents, all I have to do is put a question in there and it knows so much about me that it's able to push those things out. And so if you are a business owner that puts a lot of your stuff into that stuff, like I do, all you have to do is just type in, my business. Can you give my average front end metrics for landing page conversions, front end metrics for, appointment conversions, show rates, cancellations, whatever the average is, it'll do all the research for you and then put out those averages and then just compare everything across the board for that on your stuff. And so Meta, just data is better than no data. But if that's like all, like he was using, this guy particularly was using a mix between Go High Levels data and Facebook's data, and no data or some data is better than no data. And so just cross referencing those based off of what ChatGPT gave you, you'll be able to see your bottlenecks and you'll be able to identify them. Especially if like you're newer to the business, you're a newer business, you don't have like um, historical data. Like when I first started tracking data in like 2018 in my gym, by 20 to like in the beginning, I wish I would have had a tool like ChatGPT that I could compare against. But I ultimately was just leaning on historical data, like, okay, like 2018 is going to be a wash, kind of just like a baseline. Like in every business I go into that doesn't have their metrics, I mean, now I have AI at my disposal, so I can cross-reference all these average metrics against every business in that industry, to get my averages, to get that baseline established, and then compare and find those bottlenecks. But if I'm a newer business, it's hard to, this is really all I really can compare to because I don't have historical data and I haven't been tracking it. Or even I'm an existing business, but I never tracked my data. It's very hard to get that to compare it against. And so this just gives us a baseline and then we can solve it. And ultimately, like no one's perfect in business. They just try to find that thing that's going to get them the biggest needle mover. And then we just remove that constraint. And so I didn't get this guy's stats until later, and I'm not going to share the stats on here with when he did share them to me. But ultimately, that's the biggest growth bottlenecks that people see is like it's inconsistencies. They'll do something for a little bit and then they fall off, or they get that, initial rush. Like for instance, if you're in the fitness industry, a big rush is like the beginning of the year. But if you're not consistent throughout the year and you just take that as like, hey, that was my grand slam, and then I'm going to hit off the gas, you go right into a slow month into the summer months. And then you have dreaded summer churn, you have the dreaded, winter months. And so the seasonal churn is like a real thing in that industry. And so if you're not aggressive all throughout, you're not consistent, of course you're going to run into a growth bottleneck, right? And then if you don't track your metrics, you're going to be like, what did I do wrong? What's going on? My business is like stalling. I don't know what's going on. And so first thing is like, are you being consistent with your efforts? Like at some point you can compare your effort, right? That's when you were in the most pain. Like for instance, when early on in business, when I would struggle for payroll and I was like, oh crap, payroll's coming up. I'm struggling. I got to do something. I would make it work no matter what. I was always able to make it work. But the problem is like what I didn't realize until later on is I would only make it work when I was in the most pain, when I was like, oh, something really is about to knock on this door and I have to make it work. Cause I didn't ever want to have a conversation with my employees at the time and say, hey, like I can't pay you. I never wanted to have that conversation. I was always okay with not paying myself so I could pay them. But I never wanted to have that conversation. So when when the company would get to a point where, hey, like there's not a lot of cash coming in, but payroll's still coming up, I would always make it work. There was not one time that I didn't make it work. Now, if that effort was just consistent all across the board, I would never had a growth problem. And so a lot of businesses will run into the point where they get complacent and the consistency falls off. They let off the gas. Momentum is a real thing. And when you get the momentum rolling, you don't want to lose the momentum. Keep it going and start taking some stuff off your plate so that you can keep the momentum going. Build these processes, the systems around it, build the automation or outsource it, whatever it is, and build the process around it so that that momentum can keep going and you can keep elevating as a leader in your business. And so that's the first thing we see is just the lead engine isn't consistent. And then the secondary thing is they just don't know their metrics. They maybe be consistent, but they're doing the wrong things, right? If I'm getting the leads coming in and I'm hitting a perceived growth bottleneck, but I'm consistently getting leads. So say for instance that I'm getting 10 new leads every single day and I'm still not growing my business. But then I think that I just need to bump up to 15 new leads per day and I'll grow my business, but it's still not growing. Well, I'm focusing on the wrong thing. So what's the next step after getting a lead? What do they have to do? Let's look at those stats. Okay, well, once I identify that, hey, maybe I'm getting 10 leads, but I'm getting no bookings, like I'm getting no appointments booked. Okay, well then we need to solve that. Like the offer isn't good enough, or maybe the landing page isn't set up right, or maybe it could be something as silly as I've seen people that didn't even have their calendar linked, but then they just think put more gas on the fire and get more leads coming in, but then it didn't solve the problem. And so every business growth can be summed up to the fact that they're probably not being consistent enough, or they're not tracking their metrics, and just solving those bottlenecks. And so hopefully you guys found some value in this. Hopefully I was able to shed some light on if you feel like you have a perceived bottleneck in your business when it comes to growth, which just means getting new customers in, or advertising to new customer or current customers to progress them up your value ladder. Yeah, hope you guys found some value in that. And until next time, keep it real.